What's up, Sports Spectrum? It's your boy Matt Forte with my guy Jay Nice, who's always on the ones and twos. And we have a special guest for us today who is out of Wichita Falls, Texas, which is close to Texarkana, where my pops is from. Not that close, but it's up there. And she is a Arkansas Razorback, but also more than that, she's an Olympian. We have Miss Taliyah Brooks on. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. And yeah, small town, Wichita Falls. That's
Yeah, yeah. When you
yeah,
get up in North Texas, it's I think all small towns up there.
yeah.
But yeah, so let's this is your first time on Sports Spectrum. Let's let our listeners and viewers get to know you a little bit. What was childhood like growing up for you?
Childhood. I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas. That's where most of my family is at. So I have a really big family, lots of cousins and sisters. In our household, there was five kids, four girls, one boy, and the boy was the youngest. Bless
Oh
his
man,
heart.
I feel for you.
Um, yeah, so he has what I said, four sisters. He has like six moms. Um, because he just got bossed around his whole life. But very, very like loud, supportive sports family. Everyone did sports. My dad played football and ran track in college. My mom played basketball. Um, I had an uncle that boxed. And so we were always like into sports. We did move around a bit. So we lived in Fort Worth for a bit, then Austin area, Pflugerville, and then we moved back to Wichita Falls my junior year of high school. So I was able to graduate like in the place that we called home, which I
Oh,
think was
nice.
really special. But I was a basketball player growing up. I preferred to play basketball. I didn't really like running track. Um, but I mean, I wouldn't be here today without my family,
Hmm.
and so I'm thankful for them.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So multi-sport. Uh, I assume in high school, did you play basketball all 4 years?
I did. I played basketball up until my senior year. I tore my ACL my senior year
Mm.
actually in basketball. So I didn't get to run track my senior year and I wanted to go to college for both. And I was trying to join the Arkansas team up until I was like a junior in college, which a lot of people don't know that. The coaches hated it. But it took me a while to let go of like the basketball dream.
Oh man, man, yeah. I mean, when it's the first love, people talk about basketball being their first love. There's a lot of football players who think they can play basketball, but there's some that can like go into the NBA because just physicality wise, I guess maybe the height wise. I just knew when I got to high school, I was like six at senior year 6'1". I'm like I'm not growing that much. I'm going to actually run track to get faster for football. I'm
Right.
not dealing with the basketball stuff, but when you have a passion like that, it doesn't just go away. So that's
No.
interesting that when you went to Arkansas, you were trying to get back on the team as well. So when it comes to, now and being an Olympian, do you go in the off season or if there's an off season, do you go and shoot and hoop?
No, not anymore. I used to in college. And it's funny you say that about the football players because all the football players think they can hoop. So and me. So in everybody's off season, or I mean, I guess it would be the football's players off season, but I would be in season. But we would go to the rec and I'd hop in some games with them. And I think one of the last times I played, I got elbowed in the mouth
Oh
and my
man.
lip was like busted and swollen. It was an accident. But I had to go to practice the next day, and we had a track meet that weekend. And I remember my coach, Coach Johnson, we're super close. The day of the track meet, he was like, "Can you put some lipstick on that or something?" Like, so I put some lipstick on it, and then I fell in the hurdles, and I was like, "I'm never running with lipstick again." But he did not know it was for me playing basketball. He had no idea
Oh
that I
man.
had been playing basketball, and I think I was a sophomore at that point. So I had been playing like a lot of basketball. So I never went back after that. I was like, okay, we might be testing our luck here, and if I
Yeah.
get hurt out there, he's gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah, my last time playing basketball was my sophomore year in college. I was playing in a pickup game just in the off season, jumped up, got a rebound, came down on somebody's foot, and I sprained my ankle so bad. I had
Yeah,
blood in my
my
calf. I
coaches
had
didn't
like
like that.
contusion in my calf from that. And yeah, my coach was like, "Do you think you're gonna go to NBA or something like that? What are you doing?" And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Think I
You're
might want to not
right.
get
Let
off
me
the." And that
stop.
was the last day I played basketball. So, but anyway, enough about me and my sorry basketball career. Let's talk about yours. So what made you go towards track? Basketball being the first love. what made you turn over to running track?
I was just more recruited in track. I was
Mm,
highly, highly recruited in track. Basketball, I was recruited, but it was a lot of like smaller schools because I just didn't get the exposure in high school. My dad like made us run track. And
hmm.
so I would do basketball like on the side. My mom would try to plan like a summer basketball tournament in the same town that I was running the track meet in. So it was just track had the what's the word I'm looking for? Was at the forefront, I guess, in my household. And
Okay.
so, but my dad always told me, he's like, track is your gift. Like, track is what's gonna, take you to all new places. And I just didn't want to hear it at the time. He wasn't wrong. But for us, I mean, my parents like really pushed us to do sports and made us do sports as a way for us to go to college. Cause I mean, we come from very humble beginnings, and my
Hmm.
dad was just like, I want y'all to have a better life than I have, and we can't pay for y'all to go to school, and you need to go
Yeah.
to school to have a better life. So it's either college or the military when you graduate. Like, you can't stay here, essentially, like the tough love type of conversation.
Yeah.
And we all got scholarships to go to school. My brother ended up going to the Navy. He didn't finish college, but all four of the girls got full scholarships to either run track or play basketball. I had a sister that played basketball at LSU, graduated multiple degrees, and no one has student debt. So I think my parents did their
Yeah.
job. That was the goal, was to get the college paid for. So ultimately, that's why I went that way. I just had more options with track.
Yeah. That's awesome. So your dad saw something in you earlier
hmm
than you obviously did. When did that click for you that I do have a gift in on this track?
I mean, I think I always knew. When I was younger, my oldest sister is 1 year older than me, and she would always beat me. And then one year, I don't remember how old we were, but I beat her. It was always my goal to beat her. I don't know why you like, but we could be dead last in the race, and as long as I beat her, I'd be happy. But I remember the day that I beat her, it was like, okay, I'm on to something now, and she never beat me again.
Oh wow.
Which was just again, we were just super competitive, but I think from that time, because you're around your siblings, so you see other people, you see how hard your siblings work compared to everybody else. And I knew my sister, like, she always tried to set an example for us. She worked really hard. She was the fastest person in her grade. So I just measured myself off of her.
Yeah.
And so yeah, once I beat her, I was like, all right, I'm good at this. But I don't think it was until I really got going in college where it was like, all right, I can actually be really good at this. Because in high school, everybody thinks they're hot stuff. Like, at my high school is the best one, but then when you go to college, it's almost like a reset. Like, everyone in college is hot stuff at their high school, so you kind of have to find yourself. And I think I was like the number two recruit coming out of high school. So I knew I was good, but when you go into college, you get humbled very quickly, most people. And so yeah, that happened to me, and I just had to refine
Yeah. Yeah. It's
myself.
the great reset. You know, when
Yeah.
you a senior in high school, you're like, oh yeah, I'm the stuff. And then you get to
hmm
college, you're a freshman again.
And
And
you're
then
like,
senior year of
everybody's good.
college, you do the same thing, you fill in
Yeah.
that, and then you get humbled again. So
You
it's
get
like
humbled
this
again.
cycle,
Yeah. When
you
I
know.
became a pro, it was like 3 years before I won a race.
Yeah.
Like, so it was just, yeah, it happens. It's just a cycle. It's a cycle.
Let's talk about that. Going pro. How was like what was that feeling like? What was that experience like? And then, walk us through, this past summer, the Summer Olympics that were in Paris.
Yeah. So I don't think that it was never really a goal of mine to run professional track, I don't think. Um, because when we were growing up, there was just less social media. So you really only saw the Olympics on
Hmm.
TV. So it's always like, okay, I'd like to go to the Olympics, but it was never a thought like, oh, I want to be a professional athlete. And this past Olympic trials was my third Olympic trials. I competed in 2016 when I was a sophomore or a freshman, or a sophomore in college. And that was more for like the experience. Like, I qualified for the Olympic trials, whatever, got the experience, but I didn't really think I was going to make the Olympic team. But then in 2021, that was the year like I was competing the best I had ever competed in my life. Most people had me picked to make the team. Like, if you were writing down your predictions, I thought I was going to win the track meet, and then that did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. I ended up collapsing due to heat exhaustion, and that's a
Oh
big
wow.
whole deal. So I did not make that team. I didn't even get to finish the competition. And then I had to wait another 3 years to try out for this past season. So that was a really hard like experience, a really traumatic experience in
Mm,
2021. And it took me a long time to like be mentally and physically prepared for this time around. Took a lot of faith, took a lot of hard work. But then this time around, I don't know, I felt prepared mentally and physically. And when I made the team, I don't think the reaction wasn't immediate. I think it was
mm,
over the next few weeks, like, oh, that was really real. Oh, I made the Olympic team. And then once I went to Paris, had that whole experience. I think in the moment, once again, it didn't feel real. It was like some
yeah.
weeks after, like, oh, I really ran in the Olympics. And I still wake up some days thinking that, like, oh my goodness, I really ran in the Olympics. So
Yeah.
now it's, people keep asking, are you going to run in 2028? We're figuring that out. We're gonna take it one year at a time. But yeah, that was definitely like on every track athlete's bucket list is to make it to the Olympics, and then you want to get a medal. And so I finally made it there, and that was really cool.
Good. Yeah. I wanna get into your faith story a little bit, and let's talk about 2021. Obviously you said it being traumatic, and something as extreme as heat exhaustion and
Hmm.
collapsing, but then the disappointment part that comes with that. As a an athlete, I still call myself an athlete, but being retired. But hindsight now, I know that there's always development in the disappointment part, and I had to grow spiritually to actually understand that. How was it dealing with that disappointment, but then at the same time, like, what was the development process, I guess, in like learning that now, or looking back now and seeing that?
There was, oh my goodness, there was definitely like so much growth. I think going into that year, 2021, I did everything right. Like everything that could be done right, at least so I thought I was doing. So I was like eating correctly. You would have never seen me eat any piece of chocolate, sweets, anything. So I was eating correctly. I was doing all my rehab. At the time, like I would wake up super early. Sorry, my dog is playing with his toys. I'd wake up super early and like read my Bible. I don't think I really even knew what was going on. I would read it because in my mind, it's part of the checklist.
Mm,
Like, gotta have some faith. You gotta eat right. You gotta go to practice. And so when I got to the trials, and that happened, I think after the fact, I was in a state of shock for sure. I was like, why? Almost like a why me? And like, I
mm-hmm,
don't understand because I did everything right. Like, even down to the I mentioned I would read my Bible because in my mind it's like that's part of doing things right.
mm-hmm,
So afterwards I'd be like, God, I just don't understand. Like I read the Bible every single day. Like I did. And I do have a church home here in Fayetteville. It's called CLC, Christian Life Cathedral. I've been going there since I was a freshman in college. And after Olympic trials, I stopped going to church.
mm,
And it wasn't because like I didn't stop believing in Jesus, but I was just angry. I was angry because I was just like, I don't understand. Like I did what I felt you told me to do, and now I'm stuck here. Like I trained all my life for that and it was taken away. So I stopped going to church. I stopped like praying. I just had a moment. It was probably a couple months again where I was just angry. At the time, like me and my boyfriend, someone I thought I was going to be married to, like we broke up in that same time. So it just felt like a lot was piling on. And again, it was like the why me. But one day, like a guy from our church, mind you, I had been going to this church for like 6 years at this point, 7 years, but I would always sit in the back. So I didn't really know people. I knew the few people that would sit around me, but that was it. And the pastor, I knew the pastor. So let me back up. When I collapsed in Olympic trials, I didn't have my phone. So I was around my family. They were at the hospital. When I got my phone back, I think I spoke to my boyfriend at the time. Obviously, Coach Johnson and them were there, so I didn't have to speak to them. But I got a random call from a 479. That's Arkansas area code. And something told me to like answer the phone. And I didn't answer any other phone calls. Like my phone was blowing up, wasn't answering. But I answered that one, and it was the pastor from my church.
hmm,
And he was just like, I know we've never actually spoken, but I'm watching. I know it happened. So he prayed. He prayed with me. And then fast forward, I hadn't gone to church in a few months. Someone from the church called. His name's Chad. He's the communications pastor. And he was just like, I know you do media stuff. Like, would you want to come and film the morning announcements for church? Because I think they noticed that I hadn't been there.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, sure, Chad, I'll come up there. And so I came up there, I filmed the announcements. Um, and then I just kind of, that got me back into going back to church because he was like, I know what happened, but like, how are you? And I just started bawling. I'm like, Chad, I'm so sad. Like, I haven't been going to church. And he's like, just come to church, like get to know people around you. Like you have a family here. And from that day forward, again, I started going to church. I started meeting people. Um, and I think just over the next few years, I just had to build like spiritually.
Hmm.
So I think Olympic trials was in June. In November, like around November 21st, I got baptized at CLC, and they asked like, who would you like to baptize you? And I was like, Pastor Steve. Like, I talked to him the day all this kind of started falling apart, like when it felt like my whole life started falling apart. So he baptized me, and then over the next few years, it felt like my church family at CLC just went through like the growth process with me.
Yeah.
I spoke at a women's event and just kind of told them this same story. Um, every year when I get ready for a trials, they would pray for me. They would stand me up in front of the church. Everybody would pray for me. Everybody would cheer me on. And because they knew like the anxiety and the stress and just everything that had gone on with that Olympic trials. Um, and they did that up until this year. They still, I mean, every week they still do it. Like, we saw you running. So when I made the team, it felt like I was making the team for like myself, my family, but also like my church family.
Yeah.
Because that family just feels different. Like it's not your blood family. It's people that I literally only see on Sundays. Maybe sometimes at like a Bible study because I started joining Bible studies this past year, which was new for me. But yeah, like my spiritual family, they've been through it with me. And it was just exciting, I guess, to also make the Olympic team for them
Yeah. Yeah. So
and with them like cheering me on.
you can definitely validate that the local church is important as
Yes,
even as
absolutely.
a professional and with notoriety and people knowing you and seeing you on TV and knowing your career and stuff. The local church is very, very important.
It's very important because again, I was going, but I didn't know anybody. But once you like know people and you actually have that community, like it makes a huge difference. People will just send me messages from the church or send me a DM on Instagram, like, we're praying for you, we're watching you. And I feel like I feel like it might be odd to say, but I mean, I know it says it in the Bible, like when you're praying in groups, basically, like that prayer is heard
Hmm.
more. I don't want to say more than like a single person. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean
Um,
the prayer of the righteous availeth much,
yes.
and
And it's like I can feel that when they're
yeah,
like lifting me up in prayer. Like it feels different when you have a community around you that is praying for you and praying directly for what they know that you need. And yeah, I would just say it makes a difference. I have a journal that I write in, like I write in all my workouts before the track meets. I'll write in like my goals, the different things that I'm trying to do, but I also write in different sayings and Bible verses. And this year, because Olympic trials was crazy. I think I went in this year like super healthy, ready to go. The first event, I almost fell in the hurdles. And if you fall in the heptathlon, like you're done for. So I hit a hurdle really bad, but I somehow like stayed on my feet, ended up running a really like slow time. Um, which was just crazy that I stayed on my feet. But I went to high jump and my ankle started hurting. And just from there, like all of the events just kept going downhill. Like stuff kept happening. I was crying in all of the events. And I don't know if there's ever been a time in my life where I felt like I prayed and I immediately got results.
hmm
But at Olympic trials this year, 2024, US Olympic team trials, I felt like it was really one of those like divine timing type of things. Um, because I would be in an event and I would feel like I'm not going to be able to finish because X, like each event, it was something different. My ankle is hurting. I literally cannot jump. So I go through the day, I go through day two, my knee is randomly hurting. I don't even get to warm up for the long jump. It's the very first event. I didn't really get to warm up. I fouled my first jump. The second jump was basically so bad that it would have taken me out of the running for the team. And I remember on the third one, I was like, Lord, please just give me what I need. I don't need anything.
Hmm.
Whatever I need to just cover. And I made a jump that wasn't a big jump, not great for me, but it did what I needed it to do. And then
Hmm.
the same thing happened in the javelin. First two throws, the girl behind me throws a PR. The people in front of me, they throw PRs. And on the last throw, if I do not throw a PR, I'm not going to make the team. And I'm just like, Lord, whatever I need. Like, can you just, whatever and immediately I got a PR. And the javelin, everybody knows my javelin is terrible. It's my worst event. And I got a huge PR by a few meters.
Wow.
And then we go into the 800. It's the last event. Again, everything's hurting. I'm like taped up. I have tape on my ankles, tape on my knee. We get on the line for the 800. So the heptathlon goes by points. 800 is the very last event. The girl in front of me, I have to beat her by like 5 seconds. The girl
Mm.
that's in second. Top three make the team. The girl that's in second, I have to beat her by 5 seconds to pass her. I'm in third. And then there's a girl behind me. I have to stay within like 8 seconds or something of her. And if I don't, she passes me and I wouldn't make the team. So we go out for the 800 and we had a little delay. We had like a 10-minute delay, but I go out to run and everything stops hurting. Like literally, nothing is hurting. My knee is no longer hurting. I'm not limping. But just 5 minutes before that in the back, I was limping. Like, okay, let's just make it through. Like, run how you run at practice. I go out, nothing is hurting. And mind you, anytime like in college, professional, if it ever came down to the 800, I did not achieve said goal. And it happened a few times. Like, oh, you could win NCAAs. Oh, you could do this if you run this in the 800. I had always failed. So everything stops hurting. We take off running. The girl that's behind me, she's a very good 800 runner. And I'm like mid. So I'm just hanging on. I come through the line and I made the team by less than like half a second.
Wow.
Um, Literally like 10 points, which isn't even a full second. I beat her by 10 points. And I just like passed out because I just feel like in every single event, I was given just enough to do
Yeah.
what I needed to do. Um, so I definitely would not have made that team without like faith and like the prayer, all the prayer words, and nobody knew that was going on. I'm kind of scatterbrained all over the place, but back to the journal, I write stuff down. And one of the verses that I wrote was faith of a mustard seed. If you have the faith of
Hmm.
a mustard seed, you can tell a mountain move from here to there and it will move.
Yeah.
And I don't tell people what I write in the journal. I've written in the journal for years and I don't tell anybody. And throughout the whole competition, Coach Johnson, we're like this. I don't tell him when I write my journal. He kept telling me that throughout the competition. Like, faith of a mustard seed, Taliyah.
Wow.
And I'm like, how do you know to say that to me? And so it was just stuff like that that was going on throughout the entire competition. And then ultimately I ended up making the team. And I just think that that's like part of my story. Like I had to
Yeah.
go through 2021 to be prepared for 2024. And I think had I not gone through that in 2021, I wouldn't be like where I am now.
Yeah.
Like now I'm trying to lead a freaking Bible study. Like I would have never done that 3 years prior. Or had I gotten my way in 2021, I probably
Hmm.
wouldn't be at this place spiritually. And sometimes like I'll be at Bible study or I'll be talking to people and stuff will just come out of my mouth. I'm like, how do you know that? Like, what? And so I just sometimes I'm amazed at like my own spiritual growth throughout these
Yeah.
last 3 years. But I definitely wouldn't be here without that situation.
Yeah. The Holy Spirit, man, it's inexplicable sometimes
Yeah,
what happens. I've had some moments on the field where I felt like he was the wind behind me. I was like, how did I outrun that guy in that moment?
absolutely.
Or, and, some games I woke up like, I don't know if I could play today, same thing. And, yeah, I mean, I feel like in those moments when 2021 happens, you had to go through that and the Lord was trying to
Mm-hmm.
grow your prayer life and your faith.
Mm-hmm.
We often have to, grow our faith. It's not that we need larger faith. It's like we have to trust in God, a big God who to him all of the issues are little. oh, your
Mm-hmm.
ailments or your disappointment. He's like, I can use all of those things to develop you so that you're ready for the moment that I've already been to and I'm seeing you succeed in. And if we trust him, we give him the glory on the other side. I think in
Yeah.
my own life, that's been what has been the main thing for me, dealing with disappointment. And I'm speaking to all the athletes out there or anybody listening that maybe not athlete that has dealt with disappointment, is to understand that when God brings you through that, so when you have that faith and trust him, it's really to give him the glory on the other side on that
Mhm.
stage. So, yeah, speaking from there, I know you're known for having red hair,
I
and
am.
you got braids in
I
now,
would have
but
in braids right now.
but you're known for the afro, having that and that hairstyle. Uh, do you have a hair story? I only ask because um, my daughter went through a little issue at school, and we ended up writing a book afterwards. And she went through kind of a racist comment about hair and skin and stuff. And so, and that was a difficult time for us. And the Lord was developing us. And what came out of it was a beautiful book that we wrote called My Hair
Oh my
Can. And
goodness. I need that book.
yeah, it's amazing how the Lord would take stuff and run with it. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to ask you about your hair story. Like, how have you been able to embrace that and have it be such a part of you to where some people may look at it like, oh, when people don't understand it, oh, you're doing too much, red hair or afro, like that. How did you embrace that and be able to be an example to young girls like yourself who
Right.
athletics or not, but have hair like you do, and be an example for them?
I don't know that I've had anybody say directly to me like something about my hair. We do experience the people that will come and just touch your hair and be
Yeah,
like, "Oh, your hair's," and just touch it. It's like, "Please don't touch me." Or the unspoken like standards of beauty.
yeah.
And growing up, like curly natural hair just was not that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always wore my hair like straight growing up. We'd get it braided, but I didn't really wear it like natural out. I'd wear it in like ponytails and stuff. But when I was in college, again, always wore my hair straight. My older sister went to a HBCU and she was the first one to start wearing her hair like out. But of course, like I was at a bigger school, a bigger platform, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try that because you're doing it. It's cute. And so I started doing it. I went to Arkansas. We're red. My dad like calls all of us red. So people at Arkansas called me red. So that's how the red color like
Okay.
came to be. Um, but throughout the years, I just started wearing the natural hair. And then a few years into it, I think this is when I really started to understand the impact. I think at first I didn't, but as social media became a bigger thing, people watching track on TV became bigger, there would be people that would come up to me. I remember one story, like I was at home in Wichita Falls just visiting, and some random people, like I was in a parking lot, they didn't know I was there, but the mom just came running up. She's like, "Oh my goodness, we're not even from here." I think they were not even from Wichita Falls. They were just visiting. And she was like, "But we've seen you on TV." And their daughter was there. She was little. She had natural hair. I'm mixed, white mom, black dad, and this was similar. A white mom, a black dad, a mixed child, curly hair, and she was just crying, and she was just like, thank you for setting an example for my child because she doesn't think her hair is pretty, and when we watch you on TV, she's always like, look, she looks like me. And it just shows people that, for one, girls that look like you can go and do anything that you want to do.
That's right.
But also, like, how you look is beautiful and how you naturally look is beautiful. Whether your hair is straight or curly or whatever it is, like, you should be able to rock however you are naturally, and the world accept that as beautiful. And
That's
so when people would come up and say stuff like that to me, I just start bawling. I'm like,
right.
please, guys, stop. But I think for me, that's when it became like bigger than just myself.
Yeah.
And it became like part of the brand and part of just how I want to show myself to the world because I know that there are other people watching.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's the
That's
hair.
great. I appreciate that because this whole book when I wrote it too with my daughter was about her seeing herself, the
Hmm.
representation part, and then I've gotten the same stories. It's crazy. A lot of people coming up and they're like, I have to give this to my granddaughter or my niece, um, because she has curly hair and she can see herself in this book. And the hope for it is just for people to see that God has uniquely made them on purpose to look
Right.
how they look. And in this world of social media and this certain standard of beauty that you could look at and kind of be confused about, you can look at yourself and be confident and love that. And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you standing
Absolutely.
standing on business when it comes to that.
Oh,
And
thank you. And it's so like, I mean, we run in Europe a lot, and so sometimes we'll go to like these small towns in different countries, and you might go somewhere where there's not that many black people, but I'll see like a little black girl
yeah,
in this small town in Germany, let's just say, and she might not speak English, but I can see them like looking at me.
yeah,
And it's almost like she looks how I look. And then their eyes are just like glued to you the entire time. And so, even like when there's language barriers, you can tell. Like, it doesn't have to be spoken, I guess, all the time, but you can tell that there are little kids watching. And like little kids that, I mean, look like you, that don't look like you, but they're all watching. And so to
yeah,
just set an example for them, I think, is the main thing and the
yeah.
main goal for myself.
Absolutely. All right. So we're running out of time. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do have to ask two last questions. So one is really simple. It'll be about your faith, but the other one I wanted to ask about, to someone who's listening and maybe in the same shoes as you, or maybe not. Maybe they're an athlete that is just different path. When it comes to pressure, there's a lot of pressure on you as an athlete, as a heptathlon. You got a lot of events to practice at and to be.
Hmm.
First of all, it's hard to do one event, and you're doing, what is it? Heptathlon.
7.
First of all, it's, yeah, seven. I was about to say five. It's seven events.
Hmm.
Um, how do you deal with that pressure? And have you seen a difference in you now than before? And how do you deal with the pressure of performing? Because you have to perform, and like some people can get performance anxiety, but it's definitely a lot of anxiousness and in having to perform at that level.
Right. Well, I think that the pressure never really goes away. Like, it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what level you are. If you're playing t-ball, you probably feel some pressure that your dad is watching you and he wants you to hit that ball and get a home run. And then just as a professional, like on any ranks, like if you're an Olympic gold medalist, a world record holder, or someone just trying to make the team, whatever it is, like there's always pressure. And I think to myself, like, pressure is a privilege.
Mm.
If there's not any pressure, for one, I'm probably not that good. Um, but also like understanding that it's coming from the outside and
Hmm.
that I don't have anything to prove to anyone else. Like, if I'm here and I'm glorifying the gift that God gave me, then there is no pressure. Like, I
Yeah.
could come out here and get dead last. I could come out here and break the world record, and the reason should be the same
Hmm.
as to why we're doing it. And
Yeah.
so I think when I remind myself that, some of the pressure kind of goes down. Um, when I remind myself and ask myself, like, well, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to impress everybody else? Am I like, why? So that for sure, but then also just like not adding that extra pressure to myself. I think sometimes I can get in my head a lot. It does create a lot of anxiety. Different stages can create anxiety, and I just have to like go back to whatever calms that down. And sometimes that's prayer, sometimes it's music. I listen to a lot of gospel music before I compete. Um, or slow R&B, like some 2000s R&B, like that calms me down. And I think that can that can help deal with some of the physical things that you feel from
Yeah.
pressure, like your heart rate's really high or you're
Hmm.
sweating and it's not even hot. You haven't even started yet. Those types of things. I just find different things that help with that. But I
Yeah.
always just have to remember my reason, like my
Yeah.
reason why. It's going to be different for everybody.
Hmm.
But if you find the like right reason, then I don't think you will feel the pressure as heavily
Okay.
because
I
the
mean,
result doesn't matter. Like, it's already written.
I like that. I wish I had that and reminded myself,
Well,
younger
it took a
self.
long time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said that probably last year.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does. It does. But Last question, unless Jay Nice has something to ask you. And this is I want to bring this home when it comes to faith. So when it talks about the pressure, you said, as long as we know why, my why, and the reason I'm doing it, and obviously with you being a follower, a disciple of Jesus, and that being a main part in your life, I want to ask you, what is why is faith? Why is faith in God and placing your identity in Him so important? And for those who don't understand, why? What's the why behind that?
The why behind that. I think it's to just remember and to understand that like we're not here forever.
Hmm.
We're not here on this physical earth forever. Um and I believe it's in well, I guess it's in all the gospels, but at the very end before Jesus dies, he says like go and make disciples.
Hmm.
And I think that that is what we are meant to do.
Yeah.
And that shows itself in different ways. It may be me being a track athlete. I could be making disciples in this way, connecting with people through track. It may be through a podcast or an elementary school teacher. And so I think that that could connect with more people than just like in sports.
Right.
Like we are supposed to go and make disciples and we each have unique gifts and we're supposed to use those gifts. And I think my time here, like on earth, if I'm doing those things, then I will experience like eternity. And
Yeah.
that's ultimately like what I want. And I want to leave here and and people know that that was my goal. That's what I was trying to do. And I hope they can see that, like whether I'm talking or not.
Hmm.
Because I think it's powerful when people can see that and you haven't spoken any words,
Yeah.
or if they don't know you.
That's right.
Because it's easy for me to say that about somebody that I go to church with every week, or someone I pray or I train with. But if it's from a distance, they can see it, they can feel it. Like that to me is when it's like, okay, you're doing it. You're doing it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Just like the sun or like the moon when it reflects the sun, you can't help but see it. You
Yeah.
see it. You don't
Can't
have to
help but
say
see it.
anything. You can see it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's like the parable of the talents. One was given five, one was given two, one was given one, and he hid it. And if
Mm-hmm.
we hide our talent, basically meaning as athletes, if we internalize that, like, yeah, I'm the best, I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm this. It's all about me. We know how that story turns out.
Yeah.
So I'm uh I'm thankful
It's
that you had spent a little time with us. To Jay Nice, I don't know, you have anything?
Honestly, I just wanted to ask you one real quick thing, Taliyah. I mean, with this has nothing to do with faith, and usually I'm the guy that goes deep in the faith questions too. But you had this opportunity at the Olympics, and we saw, you posted a picture with LeBron and had all these experiences in Paris. I was curious, either was there, and maybe it was when you met LeBron, but was there the moment where you might have been a little starstruck meeting or seeing any, and maybe you don't get starstruck, but meeting or seeing anyone at the Olympics?
I don't really get starstruck. I think the one person that could starstrike me, if that's a thing, is Barack Obama. But I will say, like, getting ready for the opening ceremonies and being around all of the athletes, all of the US athletes. I think that was a moment where it was like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm around the best athletes that the United States has to offer, that showed up like on the day that they needed to show up to make this team. So going back to the pressure, like they performed under the pressure. And I think in that moment I was a little starstruck by just the entire moment being around. I mean, I was around all the basketball players: LeBron, KD, Steph Curry took my picture on the boat. We were passing the Eiffel Tower and he was like, do you want me to take your picture? I'm like, please do. And I think also when I was on the boat, I was standing next to Steph Curry for like 30 minutes. And I didn't realize at the time that this was also his first Olympic team. And it was very cool and very like, I don't know if humbling's the right word, but maybe humbling to see him. He was into it, like the same as I was into it. And that was cool because it's like, oh, you have this global superstar that's like FaceTiming his family. He's videoing, he's into it. We're passing the Eiffel Tower and he's like, we're at the Olympics. And that was really cool to see. So I think for me, that was a moment where it's like, this is actually cool. Like I thought it was a big deal to make it to the Olympics, but again, like you have someone that has their own brand, that has millions of, like, way more people know him than will ever know me. And he's living in the moment. And that was cool to see,
But
and cool to be a part
how
of.
cool is that you were able to have that pride to represent America, but then
Mm-hmm.
also represent Jesus at the same time, because some people can go for their own, reasons and stuff, but you were
Right.
like, but you know how you got there and you know why you're there, but then being like, Jesus being that foundational aspect of it.
Oh, that's the biggest thing. Right before we competed, I don't know. I mean, most people are familiar with Anna Hall, um, and we are competitors. Like, we compete against each other. Obviously, she wants to beat me. I want to beat her. But we're also, I wouldn't necessarily say friends, but we are friendly. But before the first event, like, we prayed together, because again, it's just the reason why we're here and
Yeah.
what we want to showcase. Obviously, we want to showcase our abilities on the track, but we want people to know why we're here, and that's the main thing. And so being able to, like, pray with your competitors and for your competitors, I think it's just another example of that, because you would think,
Yeah.
like, oh, but you want to beat her. I do want to beat her, but, like, we're gonna praise Jesus at the same time, and,
Yeah.
and it'll be a good day. So yeah, it was cool representing my faith, representing my country, and just that whole experience. It's definitely life-changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Center field, midfield, I should say, at the end of the game with the prayer circle was one of the best times because I'm out there, people trying to take my head off for, two and a
Mm-hmm.
half hours. But then we come together and be like, oh man, I didn't know he prayed. I didn't know he was a believer. And then you connect on a different
It's
level
something you can connect on, yeah.
and
And then you just remember it's bigger than sports.
that's right,
Like, it's bigger than this.
transcends the game, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the track or the field or whatever, or the court. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Hopefully one day we get to see you at like a PAO or something like that. And,
Yeah.
I definitely will test your one-on-one skills in basketball because, all football players, we think it, we got to try it. So,
Get your ankle
you know,
braces ready. You're gonna need
I'm
them.
not, I ain't going that hard. I'm going to just be trying to shoot. I learned my lesson back in 2005,
Oh, that's
2006,
funny.
but,
That's funny. Well, thank y'all for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.